everybody? Garrett back here, and I was going through my collection today, just kind of organizing things, and I started looking at some of the movies that I've acquired over the years. And if you've been following this channel a long time, you know that my taste in horror movies has changed drastically over the years. And a lot of these movies that I was watching or had purchased in the 2000s during that like extreme disturbing horror era around that time, I was trying all these different things between recommendations from my uncle. I had a friend Colin who was really into a lot of this kind of more disturbing horror stuff, more extreme horror stuff. And as I'm looking through my collection, I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff in here that I really don't think I'd ever watch again. Now, with that being said, I decided to just grab 5 movies that caught my eye that I thought to myself, I will never watch these movies again. I just think it's just not anything that I'm really into anymore. It was a little too disturbing for me at this point in my life. I think that it was one of those things where even when I watched some of these for the first time, I thought to myself, yeah, I'll never watch this again. And some of the ones I'm going to talk about, I've literally only watched once in my whole life, and they've kind of just sat in the collection for a real long time. Now, for people who like this kind of stuff, that are into the more disturbing, kind of hard to watch extreme horror, you may find some of these movies and be like, oh, I love that movie. You may find some of these and say, yeah, that one's a little too much. I'll never watch that thing again, or I'm never going to watch that movie, because there are a lot of movies out there. And if you've been following the channel a long time, you know this, that I've never seen. Things like a Serbian film, Salo, like those aren't things that I don't think I would ever watch. And I've had people try to pay me on YouTube to do a watch along of these movies, and unfortunately it did not happen. I said no, I did not want to watch those movies. It's just not anything I feel like I want to ever see. Now, I picked 5 movies just that caught my eye out of the collection that I'm kind of like, man, I don't think I'll ever check these out again. So let's get down to it. All right, now the first one I've seen actually twice in my whole life. The first time I saw it was a recommendation from my uncle when I was younger. It's one of his favorites. And when I watched it for the first time, I said, I'll absolutely never watch this movie again. And about a year ago, I was doing a show with Dead Pit Radio, and they were trying to get me to watch this movie a second time on a watch along, and I'm like, absolutely not. It's like, oh, give it a rewatch, give it a watch. I'm like, I'm not going to watch it. Well, the people in the chat at the time kept giving super chats, and basically until I said, fine, okay, you guys have spent too much money on this, I will check it out again, even though I said I would never. And that is 1980's Cannibal Holocaust. So again, this is the DVD that I purchased way back when this came out. This came out in 2005. That's when I purchased this thing. This was a highly recommended movie by my uncle. And when I put this thing in for the first time, I could not believe what I was seeing. This was the first time I'd ever seen any kind of like animal killings, live animal killings on film. And man, that really kind of took me back. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with these kind of movies. I don't know what it is, but when it comes to kids and animals and stuff, I cannot do it. So I did rewatch this thing for the first time since 2005, last year. And, you know, I will say, as far as a movie, it comes off as a documentary. It's these people go missing in an Amazon rainforest, and these other people go in to look for them, and they find these tapes and kind of find out what happened to them. Now, as an overall movie, I think it's actually pretty decent, but it's the stuff in the movie, and I know you can watch it without the animal killings and stuff like that. But again, I've seen it twice. Both times I watched it showcase the animal stuff, the turtle, and all that stuff. And man, I don't think I could ever watch this thing again. Now, I can understand some people that maybe like the story, but cannibal movies are just not my thing. All right, speaking of cannibal films, a year later, this one came out, and I kind of have the exact same feeling as I do about Cannibal Holocaust, except the only difference is I've only seen this movie one time. This was another one that was recommended to me by my uncle when I was younger, and it was when I was really getting into horror stuff and all this obscure stuff and exploitation and all these different subgenres. He recommended Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox. He's really big into the cannibal movies, but me, I am not big into the cannibal movies at all, and I kind of had the same feeling about this movie as I did Cannibal Holocaust. This is also Make Them Die Slowly was another name for this, and this is another Italian flick by Umberto Lenzi. It's kind of his take, I guess, with what Ruggero Deodato did with Cannibal Holocaust. Now again, this has similar stuff. It's the animal stuff, guys. The animal stuff. There was a guy eating larvae. I can remember that. There was a scene where the snake killed like this pet of theirs, and there was another scene where they strapped this pet to like their Jeep, and they're flying around the mountain, and they're in the mud, and this thing's basically getting dragged along by this Jeep. And it was just disturbing to me. Both of these movies, super disturbing to me. I am not a big Cannibal fan at all, especially with these animal killings in here. Just not my thing. Again, I bought this back in the day when it came out, and I've only seen this movie once. So my memory on it is very, very slim. So I haven't seen this in probably about 20 years now. And I don't think I'll ever watch this thing again. All right, so the third one on my list was a DVD that I bought in 2012, and this was kind of getting in the rounds around that time. There was some other movies, which I'm going to talk about in a different video, that were really getting hype around this time when it came to this kind of extreme violence that a lot of these horror movies were getting into in those early 2000s. And this is a movie called Found. This also spawned a sequel called Headless, which I did have on Blu-ray, and I sold it for quite a bit of money, actually, because it was like signed and all this other stuff. But I've seen this movie twice. The first time I watched it, it was, like I said, it was around those times where a lot of those movies were really kind of getting hype. And then Headless came out, and I was like, oh, I'll buy the sequel, see what this is about. But I watched it a second time, probably, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more. But I really don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. It's just not the type of horror movies that I'm into. It's basically about these two brothers. This one guy is like a serial killer, and he's collecting like people's heads. And there's just a lot of disturbing scenes in this that I just really have no interest in watching ever again. Let me know if you guys have seen this movie Found from 2012. Let me know if you've seen Headless. I honestly remember nothing about Headless. Like I said, I bought it on Blu-ray. I may have watched it once. I forget. I just remember the guy had like a skull mask, and then I ended up selling it because I think it was a very limited release. So that is a movie called Found from 2012, which I don't think I'll ever check this thing out again. All right, this one is from 1987, and again, back in the DVD days, I was buying everything that were kind of horror related. Anything I could find. Like I said, I did have a friend, Colin, at the time, who was really big into, like, the more extreme, the better. So we were kind of searching out some of these movies, and I never liked this one. This one really kind of grossed me out, and I watched it one time, and I was like, I'll never watch this thing again. But it sat in my collection on the shelf all these years. I think I must have got this release in like 2006 or something like that, but this is a movie from 1987, and it's called Necromantic, and it's basically about a guy who's working, I think he does like, he cleans up like bodies and stuff like that, and you know, he ends up taking a lot of this stuff home with him, and he's got body parts at the house. I don't even know if I can show this, but he's got body parts at the house, and there was one point in time where he picks up this body and brings it home, and him and his girlfriend kind of have their way with this body sexually, and it's a freaking weird, gross, disturbing scene that when I was watching this, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I watching this movie? And again, from there, I was just totally out, and I had never put this back on again. To be honest, I don't even know if I ever finished this damn movie, but it's definitely not something that I would ever watch again. I do not have the sequel. I know there was a sequel to this. I've never seen it. I do not own it. But man, Necromantic is something that I will probably never ever check out again. All right, and the last one I'm going to talk about was actually put out by Anchor Bay, which at that time I was buying everything Anchor Bay around that time, because Anchor Bay was one of those companies, when I bought a movie from them, I always felt like I was going to find a gem. Now, when I watched this one came out in 2007. It was disturbing enough for me, and I was like, this is just so weird and disturbing, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable here. And come to find out, this was actually based off a novel by Jack Ketchum, and not only that, but it was also based on true stories of murders.
What murder?
That took place in the 60s of a girl named Sylvia Likens, and this movie is A Girl Next Door, The Girl Next Door. And man, this is a real hard watch, especially knowing that this was basically based on a true story on what these girls had to kind of deal with. It was about two sisters who lost their parents, and they ended up living with their aunt and their cousins and stuff like that. And basically, these girls were just tortured by this family, and it's really, really disturbing. And you know, one of the girls, the oldest girls, tries to tell the police. They don't really believe them, and then of course they get beaten and assaulted by their family. And again, it is a very, very hard watch. Like I said, the fact that you know this is real, or this is based on stuff that really happened to these girls, it's something I don't think I'll ever watch again. It was just too disturbing, uncomfortable of a movie to watch. Now, this is me talking in 2025. Again, I just look at this now and say, I don't think I've ever watched this again. The last time I saw this was in 2007. So I just don't think there's any reason for me to check this thing out again. And I'm just going by my memory of the first time that I checked this thing out. But guys, this was 5 movies from my collection that absolutely disturbed me, that I don't think I'll ever watch again. Now, I'm sure we all have a lot of movies in our collections that we'll probably never watch again. Now, let me know down in the comments below, have you seen any of these 5 movies? And if so, what do you think? Is this your style? Are there some here where you absolutely love? Or are these some of the movies that you're like, you know what, I would never watch those again either? So I'm just curious to see your thoughts on these picks. Gang, thank you for checking this out. This is Garrett at Born to Be Rad. And like always, stay rad.